Medieval legend tells of a monk named Herman the Recluse, condemned to be walled up alive for breaking his vows. Facing death in darkness, he struck a desperate bargain. He would create in a single night a book so magnificent it would bring eternal glory to the monastery, a compendium of all human knowledge. As the hours slipped away and the enormity of the task crushed him, he turned not to God, but to the devil. For the price of his soul, the work was finished by dawn. Bible, histories, medical treatises, calendars, and incantations. To seal the pact, the devil left his likeness within, filling an entire page with a vivid, solitary portrait. The giant volume became known as the Codex Gigas, the Devil's Bible. Nearly a meter tall and weighing more than 70 kilograms, it was the largest manuscript of its age. Its pages held the complete Latin Vulgate Bible, alongside the histories of Flavius Josephus, the Ars Medicinae medical compendium, Cosmas of Prague's Chronicle of Bohemia, and a collection of monastic rituals and protective charms. In essence, it was a library bound into a single book. Its origin lies in early 13th century Bohemia, between 1200 and 1230. The earliest record places it in the Benedictine monastery of Podlasis, a modest and impoverished house ill-suited to producing such a lavish work. Yet there it was treasured, passed from monastery to monastery as its fame spread. In 1295, it moved briefly to the Cistercians of Sedlec before returning to Benedictine hands in Prague. By the late 16th century, it caught the eye of Holy Roman Emperor Rudolf II, a collector of rare wonders and occult objects. He brought it to his Prague castle in 1594, where it remained until the end of the 30 Years' War. In 1648, Swedish troops seized it as plunder and carried it to Stockholm, where it entered the Royal Library. Its survival was nearly cut short in 1697, when fire swept through Stockholm's Tre Kronor Castle. In the chaos, someone hurled the Devil's Bible from a window to save it, the massive book crashing to the ground, and by some accounts, injuring a bystander. In 1878, it was placed in the National Library of Sweden, where it remains today. Modern analysis confirms the myth's core impossibility. The manuscript was indeed written by a single scribe, but over decades, not hours. Handwriting consistency across its hundreds of pages suggests 20 to 30 years of work by one steady hand. The name Herman the Recluse does appear in the text, though whether it was the scribe's name, a pseudonym, or a dedication remains uncertain. Another mystery lies in its missing pages. Originally composed of 320 sheets, 12 are gone. One contained the opening of Genesis. The contents of the others are unknown, inviting speculation about lost or forbidden material. The Codex Gigas remains unique not only for its size and scope, but for the unsettling image of the devil dominating an entire page, a feature found in no other Bible of the era. 8 centuries later, it still sits at the intersection of fact and fable, a work of devotion and a monument to the legend that gave it its name. Knight with the Iron Hand. At the Siege of Landshut in 1504, the air was thick with smoke and the roar of cannon fire. Amid the chaos, a shot tore through the din and found its mark, slamming into the right wrist of a young Franconian knight. Steel shattered bone. His sword fell to the ground. Blood soaked into the churned earth. For most warriors of the age, it would have been the end. For Gotz von Berlichingen, it was a pause. Within months, he returned to the saddle, his severed hand replaced by a gauntlet of iron, its hinged fingers shaped by a blacksmith's hammer, locked in place by hidden springs. His resilience was forged in a land where survival meant constant readiness for war. Born into a minor noble family in Franconia, Gotz grew up in the shadow of crumbling castles and shifting alliances. From an early age, he learned that power came not from title alone, but from the ability to defend it. As a teenager, he served in the retinues of great lords, riding under Margrave Frederick of Brandenburg and Spach. In 1497, and campaigning for Emperor Maximilian I the following year. By 1500, he had traded the security of formal service for the freedom and danger of independence. He gathered a company of seasoned fighters, their loyalty bound by gold and honor, and began hiring out their swords to dukes, barons, and princes. The Holy Roman Empire was a patchwork of rival powers, and Gotz thrived in the spaces where law blurred into personal justice. His feuds were as bold as they were costly. In 1512, he ambushed a caravan of wealthy Nuremberg merchants on the open road, seizing their goods and humiliating one of the richest cities in the empire. The act drew the personal ire of Maximilian, who branded him an outlaw until a crippling fine was paid. 4 years later, his quarrel with the Archbishop of Mainz escalated into open hostility. Gotz captured a nobleman allied to the Archbishop, holding him for ransom, a lucrative move that earned him another outlaw sentence, lifted only in 1518. But Gotz's ambitions stretched beyond local vendettas. In 1519, he threw his lot in with Duke Ulrich of Württemberg in a war against the Swabian League, a powerful coalition of princes and cities. Given command of Machmel Fortress, Gotz held out against siege until food and ammunition were gone. Promised safe passage upon surrender, he was instead taken prisoner and delivered into enemy hands. He bought his freedom in 1522 with ransom money and a sworn oath never to seek revenge. 3 years later, the German Peasants' War swept through the countryside. Tens of thousands of armed commoners rose against their lords, demanding an end to feudal burdens. In the Odenwald, the rebels turned to Gotz, pressing him to lead them. He accepted reluctantly, hoping to impose discipline and curb the violence, but found their rage uncontrollable. After a month, he abandoned the role and returned to his castle. His brief leadership and his history of standing against the powerful cemented his reputation among the peasantry as a champion of the common man. The price of his defiance was steep. Though acquitted at the Diet of Speyer in 1526, the Swabian League exacted revenge in 1528, luring him to Augsburg under false pretenses and imprisoning him for 2 years. Yet even as age crept in, the empire still called upon him. In 1542, Charles V summoned him to fight the Ottoman Turks in Hungary. 2 years later, he rode into France during the emperor's campaigns there. Only after these final battles did Gotz, now 64, retire to his estate. Through all these wars, the Iron Hand was both a weapon and a symbol. The first, built soon after Landshut, was simple, 4 hooked fingers to hold a shield, crude yet functional. The second, crafted in the 1520s, was a marvel of its time. Extending to his forearm and secured with leather straps, it featured articulated fingers and thumb, each joint able to lock into place. Springs, ratchets, and hinges gave it a range of motion that allowed him to grip reins, hold tankards, and rested on the pommel of his sword. Crafted by the same master armorers who could forge articulated plate armor and build intricate clockwork, it was a triumph of Renaissance engineering. Gotz often said his iron hand had served me better in the fight than the original flesh. Whether boast or truth, it was part of the legend he cultivated, the knight who could not be disarmed. Both of his prosthetic hands still rest today in Jagsthausen Castle, silent relics of a man whose life was a long defiance of fate, authority, and the limits of the body.